Hello, party people. Welcome to some more yapping. This time, we're talking about another reality TV fictional character game, Luke's Challenge All-Stars, which is a parody of The Challenge, a reality show on MTV, but with all fictional characters that were deep pulls of characters I really loved from when I was a teeny tiny child into my late teenage years. And we are halfway through the season. We are entering the individual stage of the game now. So now feels like a perfect time to do basically a mid-season power ranking, ranking all 13 of the players who are left in the game based on how likely I think they are to win. Now, this is based on a couple different things. It's based on how many challenges they've won and lost, their positioning within the social dynamics of the game, and the edit they've been getting and the content they've been getting episode to episode. And that is going to determine where they fall in this ranking. Now, before we get to the actual ranking itself, I'm just going to do a quick run through of all of the players that have been already booted and my thoughts on their run within the season itself. Starting with Shadow, the first boot, who I was surprised to see go out this early. I definitely thought Shadow was going to have a lot more in him. I wasn't expecting him to be eliminated right away. While I didn't expect it to go great, I wasn't expecting him to be the first boot. And, I mean, he was fine enough. He was entertaining enough, but nothing, really out of the ordinary there. Next up, moving on to Gloria, and I was so sad to lose Gloria this early. I thought Gloria was such fun TV. She's always someone who's just endlessly entertaining, and it really was a shame to have her go out in the second episode, because I think she would have brought so much more entertainment to the show as it went along. But alas, here we are. And that brings us to Lana, who was about what I expected. I wasn't expecting her to make it super far. I kind of got the vibe early on that she probably wasn't long for this season. And her edit was just kind of fine. She was just kind of there. So it wasn't overall a huge loss to the show. But, I mean, she was one of my favorites in Hyrule Warriors. I would have loved to see her do well here, but I don't think it was really meant to be. Next up, we do lose AA, who I was pretty bummed to lose. I thought he was really fun as this kind of just more nonchalant figure that's super carefree and is a funny foil to the more strategically active players. And I think it's a shame he goes here too, as I do think he would have had a fair bit more potential coming into the swap, but he ended up just being one round shy, which was definitely a bummer for him. Next up, we have a pretty big hit where we do lose Melman here, and I was so bummed to lose Melman here. I thought he was really entertaining. I like that he brought this kind of klutziness in contrast to a lot of the other male characters who were much more competent at the game. I think having Melman here as kind of like a bumbling presence, I think brought a lot of humor to the show. But it makes sense why he went as early as he did. I mean, he was never really that well positioned, considering that the DreamWorks characters had pretty big pregame targets that essentially meant that a very sizable chunk of the house was coming after them. And Melman just got kind of unlucky that one of those people in Edna won the challenge and threw him into the duel where he lost. But realistically, I don't know how much further he would have really made it. Next up, we lose Waluigi, who is kind of just there for a lot of it. His last two episodes were, kind of had fun moments where he was kind of causing a bit of chaos, but I was really expecting him to be more prominent, and I was a little underwhelmed that he wasn't, and he does go out so early. But I think the fact that he does go out so early when he's just kind of there, I don't think it ended up being as big of a loss as, Melman or Gloria. And a similar thing goes for the next boot in Amethyst, who I was expecting to make a bigger splash. I think Amethyst could have had these really fun moments of her kind of just playing this kind of rogue mercenary game that she's done in the past pretty well. Obviously, here she gets booted much earlier. And I think it's a shame because she gets eliminated in an upset elimination win that, by all accounts, people thought she was going to stay. And I think if she did stay, I think she would have had a lot of prospects to make a pretty deep run. So I do think while she wasn't the most memorable presence across the season, I do think her actual boot is pretty unlucky. And speaking of unlucky, we lose Fiona at 15, which was such a bummer to lose her here. I thought Fiona was a lot of fun. I think having this very iconic Shrek figure in the cast really boosted the caliber of this cast. And she had a really strong start to the season, so I'm surprised that her elimination happened when it did. I do think, similar to Amethyst, I think she got unlucky in that her elimination was just a massive upset where by all means she was completely expected to survive that, and also was unlucky kind of in a similar way that Melman and Gloria were, where the DreamWorks characters were just being targeted a lot, and she unfortunately fell victim to that. And I don't think she really played that poorly. I just think that the house dynamics were pretty stacked against her, which is definitely a shame because I would have loved to see her make it further. Now for the most recent boot in Roddy, who, similar thing to Fiona, just not as present of a personality. I mean, he definitely had his moments where he was pretty fun, but I also just think he was a lot worse at the game. He wasn't as good in challenges as Fiona was, and while he does beat her in an upset win, he is eliminated immediately after in a situation where he was pretty much toast. I don't know how much legroom he would have had going into the individual phase of the game, but I think he could have worked with a few people, but obviously that wasn't meant to be, as he got cut one round shy. And with that, we are here at the mid-season power ranking of Luke's Challenge All-Stars. And we're going to start from the bottom of the list, going up to the top based on how likely I think these players are to win the game. And at number 13, the player that I think is the least likely to win the game is Blaze. And this is for a few reasons. First of all, Blaze has only won one challenge so far, and even that challenge was a massive upset where she did not have the odds coming into it. The second of all is that she isn't really super well positioned in the house. While she does have a lot of her original Yellow Team members still in the game, she's not in the core of any of the really major groups, and she's kind of in an expendable position right now. And the third reason is that her edit has been pretty minimal. She's kind of just been there to where, while we've been getting content every so often, it's not enough content to really facilitate being higher on the list. So for all of those reasons, I think Blaze is the least likely person to win this season, and I have replaced her at number 13. Next up at number 12, we have a similar-ish thing, but there are a few minute differences between the two, and this player is Rob. Now, Rob, I think the main thing that puts him above Blaze is that he has been better in challenges. He has won 2 challenges as opposed to Blaze's 1 challenge, and he's a little bit better positioned in the game, granted not by much, but he does at least have like more core people who are a little more open to working with him. However, he's been pretty much purple on the show. He's been not getting much content at all, and even then when he does, it's more so comedic content that isn't really much of substance. Nothing that really facilitates a trajectory to a win, so for that reason, Rob is just a little bit above Blaze here. Now at number 11, we have someone who's been getting a lot more content than the last 2 people we've talked about, but has also been getting more negative content and is very clearly being set up for a fall, and that player is Yzma. Now, Yzma's brought a lot of really big entertainment and big moments to the show, and has been a great source for drama with her very cutthroat strategic gameplay and very chaotic personality. However, she's very clearly set up to fall. I think a lot of people are already planning on going after her, even if not in the short term, at some point. And I do expect these first few rounds to be a major danger spot for Yzma, and really a lot of the people who haven't been winning challenges. So for that reason, I have to leave Yzma behind here at number 11, because while she is really entertaining, her actual game prospects are pretty low. Now, at number 10, we have someone who I actually initially had higher on the list. However, when really looking at his positioning, I really had to drop him, and that player is Captain Falcon. Where Captain Falcon has been pretty present in the edit, he's been getting, well, superfluous, very humorous content, with him being this kind of macho man figure in the house. And he's been doing well enough in challenges, having won 4 challenges to date, which is definitely something to prop up. My problem with Captain Falcon's game positioning is that he's just such an obvious target, someone that everyone has picked up on as a massive threat. He's kind of been losing a lot of his allies in the past few rounds, and I do think that puts him in a very precarious spot coming into this individual phase of the game, where while I think he could definitely win at the end, I just don't think he's going to get there, which leaves him behind here at number 10. Starting with number 9, we're going to be moving on to 2 players here who both have had relatively quiet edits, but have shown a decent bit of challengeability in their games, and we're going to start that off with Furion. He's proven himself to be a pretty decent challenge competitor where while he's lost team competitions, he does have a very good track record in individual competitions, winning 2 captain's challenges and successfully winning his elimination duel. I think for me, the issue with Furion is that he's been a little more invisible in the edit. He's only been shown when absolutely necessary, and he's kind of in a very fringe middle position where I think he's safe for the short term, but I do worry about long-term prospects with him. And that, combined with his pretty middling edit, leaves him behind here at number 9. Moving on to number 8, we have someone who's been really low on the power rankings for really the first 4 or 5 episodes of the season, but in the last couple episodes has been having a pretty big uptick, and I do think this is a sign to a potential dark horse run in the individual phase of the game, and that player is Minty, where Minty was pretty quiet for those first 4 episodes, where she barely survives week 1, is on the losing team in week 3, and is kind of just on the bottom of the original yellow team. However, I do think her game has a pretty big uptick once they get to the swap, where she's much better positioned in those groupings to where while Edna does flip, she does enough good work there to stay out of the targets. And then when Petunia joins the yellow team, Minty does a lot of really good work pulling her in there. And it feels like here we see more of an uptick in Minty's content, where I do think Minty's episode 6 and episode 7 have both been pretty strong. The problem is that her first 5 episodes are really invisible, and I don't think that's necessarily great when we're looking for a winner. And because of that, she lands just below the center of the list here at number 8. Now at number 7, we have someone who's been getting a really good edit, but their actual in-game performance has been a little more middling, and that kind of lands them in the center of the list, where here we do have Priscilla. And the thing with Priscilla is, if we're going strictly based off of the edits, Priscilla is a top contender. She's been getting a lot of really strong game content where we're hearing her and her sister's maneuvers through Priscilla's perspective. She's been getting a lot of entertainment, so the edit has been going out of their way to show her, which is a very good sign with winner edits. However, from her actual game positioning, I'm not as confident. I feel like she hasn't been as good in challenges as some of the people we're about to talk about. And while she's well positioned, I think there is a very good chance that if someone from the minority is able to go after her, I could see her losing an elimination duel. But I do think it is the very strong content that Priscilla has been getting so far, plus her very strong positioning that remedies that and puts her about the center of the list here at number 7. Now at number 6, we have someone who I'm really surprised has made it this far. This person had probably the biggest pregame target coming into the season, but I do think there's definitely still a chance she could pull it out. And at number 6 here, we do have Rosalina, who by far was the biggest target coming into the season. She had the biggest reputation of all the players, and she overcame that pretty impressively. And now she's in a pretty solid position to win, where she doesn't have any super outstanding stats. I mean, her challenges are decent enough. Her positioning is pretty decent for the time being, and she's been getting a pretty solid middle-of-the-road edit, where I think there's definitely a path to a Rosalina win. While it isn't super clear right now, I think she's well-positioned enough to definitely make it that far, and I think her edit has been solid enough to where I could definitely see her upticking after the individual phase has started. So because of the potential of her game, I have her here at number 6. Now at number 5, we have someone who's been having a bit quieter of an edit. However, they're a lot better positioned in the game, and they've been winning more challenges. And at number 5, we have Petunia. And Petunia's been moving in lockstep with Priscilla. And Petunia is somebody who's been winning a lot of challenges for the duo, was able to swap to Priscilla's team and work with her more closely, which put her in a very beneficial position. And now they're in a pretty central spot coming into this individual stage of the game. And I definitely have Petunia higher than Priscilla because I feel like she has more challenge ability. And same thing with having her above Rosalina. However, the reason I don't have Petunia higher is because her edit has been a little more quiet. All 4 people left on the list have had stronger edits than her. And really we're at the point of the list where the edit is really becoming a main thing, because everyone from this point forward, for the most part, is pretty competent in challenges and is at least decently positioned within the game. So really at this point, it's kind of the edit that's coming down to it, which leaves Petunia behind here at number 5. At number 4, we have a player who's been winning a lot of challenges, but has also been a pretty big target. And at number 4, we have Realm, who I think a lot of the reason she's this high is because she's won 5 challenges, which is a very impressive stat. She's been playing very actively, which is something the edit has been propping up, and her edit has this very solid story to it of her being underestimated within the game. The reason she's not much higher is because her positioning is not that strong, where, yes, she's very competent in challenges. She's very actively playing the game. She's been getting a really strong edit with really solid personal and strategic content. The problem is that a lot of people are targeting her. Because I do expect her to be taken out at some point within the course of the game, I do have to leave her behind here at number 4. Now at number 3, we have definitely one of the biggest personalities of the season. This person has been getting a ton of content, and I still think there's a very good chance this person wins. And at number 3, we have Edna Mod. Now, Edna has definitely been one of the biggest presences of the season. Definitely the biggest presence of the people who are championing the more strategic aspects of this game. And she's been getting a lot of really fun content and a lot of personal content where we hear a lot of the social dynamics from her eyes and how she views it in relation to how she and Yzma are within the game. And I think Edna is much better positioned than Yzma, as people are going after Yzma much more than they are Edna. And I do expect Edna to win some battles in the individual phase of the game, but I don't know if she's going to win the war. I don't know if Edna has it in her to win the entire thing, to where, while she has longevity and a really solid edit and positioning, I do worry that she's going to be taken out at the tail end, and because of those prospects, I do leave her here at number 3. The top 2 is pretty tough, where we have one person who has a near perfect edit so far, but isn't as well positioned and as dominant in challenges, and then we have another person whose edit has been a little quieter, but has been absolutely dominating the challenges, and is still not being targeted somehow. And with number 2, I decided to go with the former, so at number 2, we have Layla. And like I mentioned earlier, Layla's edit has been near perfect. She's been getting really solid personal content, really solid strategic content, and she is very clearly being shown as the better of the two between her and Furion, where she's been getting a lot of the credit for the things that happen within the course of the game. And that is all very strong from her edit's point of view. She's also no slouch in challenges either, having won 4 challenges to date, which puts her in a very strong position within the game as someone who could very likely win an elimination duel to save herself. The reason I don't have her at number 1 is mainly because she hasn't won as many challenges as the number 1 person, to where, while Layla's edit is near perfect and her positioning isn't too bad either, the person above her has just been so dominant in the challenges, and I do think in a very challenge-oriented season, I do expect that to take precedence. So because of that, she narrowly misses out at the top spot. And now we have finally reached number 1, and if you had told me that this person would be at number 1 in the mid-season power rankings before I started this, I would have been gobsmacked, but somehow it has to be the case. So at number 1, we have Robin. Now, the main hesitation with putting Robin at number 1 is that his edit has been considerably quieter than Layla's. He's been only getting really circumstantial content, and he's really only being shown because he became this massive challenge beast early on, but that exactly ties into the reason why he is at the top of the power ranking. He won 6 challenges in 5 episodes, which is an absolutely insane stat. I fully expect him to win challenges coming into the individual stage of the game, and while he's petered off the last few episodes, I still think there's a very good chance he'll have lots of longevity. The other reason he's at number 1, and really the biggest factor for me, is that despite being this insane challenge beast, he's not being targeted. Pretty much no one is going after him right now. And while I do expect that to change coming into the individual stage of the game, the fact that he's gotten this far unscathed is insanely impressive, and I think really speaks to a lot of his strategic and social maneuvering. And because of that, he ends up taking the top spot in the power ranking by quite a bit. So while I do think there is potential for his positioning to shake in, that hasn't happened yet. And he's still in a very good spot as it is. Because of his challenge performance and his impressive positioning within the game, Robin is at the top of this mid-season power ranking here at number 1. And that is the entire power ranking. This has been 20 minutes of me yapping? Too long of me yapping. But this was a funny video to make. I'm going to continue the rest of the season after I post this. And once it's done, I'll probably do a full player ranking based on how everyone played within the season. So that should be pretty interesting. But for now, we wait to yap another day.